Hi, this is Big Joe Buck. What follows is an overview of Rudolf Steiner's The Apocalypse of St. John. For more information, please visit www.bigjoebuck.blogspot.com. All right. We open with the unguarded contention that the 7 cultural ages will end with the war of all against all. He asks you to think of this apocalypse, if you will, the whatchamacallit, as Terence McKenna refers to it. But Steiner asks us to look at the all against all differently and to bear in mind the cause of this war and what that means. And the cause, as he sees it, is this increase in egoism, self-seeking, selfishness, and this sort of colonies that germinates. So Steiner then continues on with the ego and speaks of it as the double-edged sword. One side of this sword is the cause that man hardens in himself, and the other side gives man his inner freedom, his independence, that which exalts him and allows him to mirror the divine. So we have these contradictory impulses here. The service of the ego for our inner capacities or the objects that we can acquire from in an external sense, and this sort of the wanting of the ego, the accumulation of the ego, and then it's far more fluid presentation as a reservoir of inner freedom, a space which to be independent and yet reflective of that which the growth of your ego consciousness through the spectrum of our evolution separates you from, but then also allows you to return to. So this is, the dignity of the ego, this endeavor, and it's the basis of the divine in man. So Steiner posits that the ego of man develops from a group soul nature, which is a sort of all-inclusive universal ego from which our individualized form of that is now differentiated. And he believes it would be wrong to return to this universal consciousness, this group mind ego, as it would sort of betray the trajectory of our own evolution into ourselves and our independence and our inner freedom, creating sort of a capacitating resonance frequency of sorts between the divine and our inner ego and its representation within this spectrum. And so this idea of not returning to the group mind and it is really interesting because he feels that it's a betrayal to the pursuit of our own inner freedom, and that inner freedom is also expanding infinitely. It has this specialized capacity to reflect the divine. Steiner notes, everything which causes a being to strive to lose his ego and dissolve it into a universal consciousness is the result of weakness. So this notion that once we've gained our ego in the course of evolutionary consciousness, it can't be lost. And thusly, we should strive for the strength to make our ego ever more inward and ever more divine. A true anthroposophist, he says, eschews that we should melt into some sort of primeval gruel. That's his phrase there. and yet instead find the final goal can be a community of free and independent egos, free and independent, individualized beings. And this is the mission on Earth. As expressed in love, that egos learn to confront one another freely, to integrate without the pernicious incrustations of our lower, denser habits and tendencies. And this mission of love, this idea to truly give love, he really finds that it's in deciphering what John, we'll say that the seer is espousing or re-rendering, is that you cannot, when each ego is so free and independent that it need not love, is its love an entirely free gift. And this non-dependence on love means that in this way we're not bringing to the table the shadow effect of the egoic bifurcated sword. And so, in this way, love is given by an individual being in all freedom, and in becoming this state, can even offer love to God. Des. If it were not like this, it would amount to strings of dependence if man could be forced in any way to love. However subtle or finite those forces were. And this is the true nature of inner freedom and egoic individualization through purification in love. The ego is our pledge to the highest goal. Yet, if not discovering love, it hardens. And, we're looking at this, the dearth, I believe that means a small amount. I could be wrong, it might be plenitude. But the dearth of, we'll say the small amount of love that's being given freely in society. And that this, since there's very little love out there, it's very difficult to mirror and reciprocate or exhale from the inhalation of an external mode, this feeling of love. And so this incrustation tendency creates a feedback loop where the harder densities are more manifest, and the ability to reciprocate an unguarded contention of love is very difficult within the daily to-dos of most societies currently on the earth. Steiner speaks sternly of this hardening and mentions it will plunge one into the abyss and becomes what separates beings from one another and brings us to this war of all against all, which is, I like to think of it as the WOAAA. And the abyss is continually refined and